pensez-vous de l'entente?
Je pense que c'est une bonne façon de collaborer pour pouvoir réaliser les priorités qui nous tiennent les plus à cœur autour des mesures sociales, autour de l'environnement, entre autres.
Est-ce que vous craignez que les électeurs disent « c'est quoi ça qu'on avait choisi » ?
Non, au contraire. Je crois que moi, je me suis présentée pour les libéraux, pour l'équité sociale et l'environnement, et c'est ce que j'ai dit à mes électeurs depuis toujours. Alors, je ne vois pas de contradiction à cibler un certain nombre de priorités communes avec le NPD pour s'assurer de pouvoir les réaliser aussi dans un bon délai. Je suis déjà pas mal en retard pour la série de questions. Merci.
We as a government have talked about having a national pharmacare program to ensure that Canadians are supported. Dental care is part of healthcare as well, and it's going to be part of the conversation as we move forward now.
Is there a downside to this deal for the Liberals?
I think there's upside for Canadians. We have to do important things as we rebuild post-pandemic. This allows for that stability for the government to deliver on important things that we ran on. The fact that we had a minority government, Canadians sent a very clear message that they want their politicians to work together to get things done, and this is our opportunity to make it happen.
This deal is going to make sure that Canadians that need dental care. I've got seniors in my riding that are cutting up their pills because they can't afford to pay for their medicine. There's so many different people that need help. Clearly the Rapid Housing Initiative has been critical. We need way more housing. So for us to be able to get a commitment from the government to build more housing for those most in need, this is absolutely essential. And there's a lot more work to be done. I mean, this deal is obviously an agreement, but we have much more work to do beyond this deal, and we're going to work right now to apply pressure on the government to do more.
Did you feel that Caucus had enough of a heads up that this was going on?
Well, these things are
negotiating this?
Yeah, these things move quickly, but we gave a clear direction to our leadership team that we didn't want to go into another budget cycle and make sure that we had to have something concrete for Canadians. You know, people need help right now, and the government has failed to deliver on really important initiatives that are going to make life more affordable when it comes to dental care, when it comes to housing, when it comes to pharmacare. These are critical things that we've, and childcare, making sure that the childcare agreement actually is delivered to Canadians. These are all things that were key platform items for us in 2015, 2019, and 2021. So, you know, we want to make sure that Canadians get the support they need. I'm hearing from my constituents, they don't want another election. We just had one 6 months ago. We had one 2.5 years ago. And the results in the polling right now says it would be the same today if we had an election. So let's get some work done. Canadians expect us to work together. That's what we're going to do. And so I'm pleased that we have an arrangement right now that can get Canadians help, but we're going to be pushing for more.
Just politically for you guys, does this make it, when the next election comes, does this make it harder for you guys to differentiate yourselves from the Liberals?
Oh no, like I mean, clearly this is an agenda that we're pushing. I mean, dental care, pharmacare, childcare, these are things that are new Democrat platform items in the last 3 elections. So we're quite pleased to see our items getting priority, and I think Canadians expect us to actually work hard to get things for Canadians. The Conservatives, throughout the whole pandemic, haven't been able to gain one thing for Canadians. They can't identify anything. Meanwhile, we've been continuing to get things for Canadians. You know, people are always talking about getting re-elected. This isn't why we're here. We're supposed to be here to help Canadians. That's why I'm here. So today's a good day for Canadians. We're going to get them the help they need, and let the voters decide if they want to elect politicians that get them the help they need, or if they want to elect politicians that just throw rocks and don't bring good ideas and aren't willing to work together. That'll be up to Canadians.
Thank you. Mr. John.
You too.
Est-ce que l'appui est unanime au sein du caucus néo-démocrate sur l'entente qui a été conclue entre les libéraux et le parti?
Écoutez, on est extrêmement fiers de ce qu'on a été capable d'aller chercher pour les gens. C'est pour ça qu'on fait de la politique, les néo-démocrates. C'est pour améliorer la vie des gens de manière concrète. Puis là, on a fait des gains qui sont vraiment historiques, à notre sens. On est très fiers d'aller de l'avant avec ça. Et on a des mécanismes pour s'assurer que ça va se faire pour vrai.
Est-ce que c'était unanime, l'appui au caucus?
Vous savez, il n'y a pas de vote dans des caucus. Il y a des discussions, puis un consensus. Puis après ça, on va de l'avant avec... mais c'était très majoritaire comme enthousiaste.
Est-ce qu'on parle de discussions corsées, par exemple, ou ça a été des discussions passées quand même assez...
C'était des discussions intéressantes sur la mise en œuvre, les détails, comment ça va se faire. Puis évidemment, il y avait beaucoup de questions à se poser, puis c'est correct aussi, puis on a pris le temps pour être capable d'entendre tout le monde. Mais il y a des choses là-dedans qui sont formidables. Là. Les soins dentaires, pour toutes les familles démunies puis de la classe moyenne en 3 ans. Les gens dans la circonscription à Montréal, là, ça fait des années qu'ils nous en parlent. Tout le monde a une histoire de quelqu'un qui n'a pas pu se faire soigner, qui n'a pas pu se faire arranger une dent. Et l'impact que cela a dans la vie des gens de manière concrète, juste pour la recherche d'emploi, c'est majeur. Alors, on est très fiers de ça.
Est-ce que vous n'arriverez peut-être pas à faire connaître aux électeurs que ces programmes-là viennent de vous, puis que ce soit les libéraux qui prennent le crédit de ça quand on arrivera à l'élection 2025?
Bien, je pense que les conservateurs sont en train de faire un travail incroyable en disant que c'est grâce à nous qu'il va y avoir des choses qui vont se faire. Alors, je les laisse aller, puis ça va être notre travail aussi d'être capable de dire aux gens, voici ce qu'on a été capable d'aller chercher pour vous. Puis, qu'est-ce qui est arrivé en septembre dernier? Les citoyens ont reconduit à peu près les mêmes députés, à peu près dans les mêmes proportions, puis ils nous ont dit, retournez travailler, là, puis allez obtenir des solutions puis des choses pour nous. Et nous, c'est exactement ça qu'on a fait en négociant, puis en allant chercher des gains qui sont historiques.
Donc, est-ce que vous les croyez, les libéraux? Vous avez passé la campagne à dire que vous ne leur faites pas confiance.
C'est pour ça que dans l'entente, on s'assure qu'il y a des mécanismes de surveillance puis de vigilance, avec des rencontres régulières des whips, des leaders parlementaires, la création d'un comité, puis la possibilité pour le NPD de dire, si vous ne livrez pas la marchandise comme le gouvernement, avec tout ce qu'on a été chercher pour les gens, bien, on va sortir de l'entente.
Ceux qui disent que c'est un déni de démocratie, parce qu'on vient d'avoir une élection fédérale il y a 7 mois, puis là, vous faites ce deal-là, faire en sorte qu'il n'y aura pas d'élection en 2025, alors que les Canadiens ont élu un gouvernement minoritaire. Répondez quoi?
Les gens nous ont élus pour qu'on travaille ensemble, qu'on livre la marchandise, qu'on obtienne des résultats pour changer leur vie. Alors, c'est ça qu'on fait aujourd'hui. On a réussi à faire plus que les autres partis d'opposition, puis on n'en est pas peu fiers.
Quand on parle de piler, d'empiéter sur des champs de compétences, vous n'avez pas l'impression que ça va être dur pour vous, notamment au Québec, cette entente-là? Bien,
écoutez, si on finit par avoir, pour vrai, là, une vraie assurance médicaments qui va vraiment changer la vie des gens qui sont malades, bien, moi, je connais plein de gens au Québec qui vont être contents, comme l'Union des consommateurs du Québec, la FTQ, la CSN, qui demandent depuis des années un vrai régime d'assurance médicaments, qui va être négocié avec les provinces, évidemment.
Ça ne serait pas la première fois que le gouvernement ou que les politiciens ne remplissent pas leurs promesses. C'est pour ça qu'on est sceptique. Je ne sais pas si vous comprenez le scepticisme.
On partage votre scepticisme, il est sain. On est un parti d'opposition, on a des idées et des valeurs qui sont différentes des libéraux, mais on a fait notre travail parce qu'on a été chercher le maximum qu'on pouvait aller chercher pour les gens, puis on va s'assurer que ça va se faire.
Sur les dépenses militaires, est-ce que cette entente-là va peut-être ralentir le gouvernement sur la hausse des dépenses militaires?
Écoutez, vous posez la question à Mme Freeland puis à son budget qui s'en vient dans quelques semaines. Nous autres, ce qui est important, c'est d'améliorer notre système de santé, l'accès au logement, des logements abordables, l'aide bonifiée pour les plus démunis, l'aide au logement. Pour nous, c'est ça qui est important. Après ça, on verra qu'est-ce qu'ils vont faire avec leur budget. Merci. Bonne journée.
Has there been opposition to this deal within your caucus?
Right. Our caucus, of course, had a fulsome discussion about the agreement. And, of course, as always, we have a range of different opinions. One of them, of course, that some members are very excited about this opportunity, because this is bringing us to the place where Tommy Douglas, 60 years ago, brought in universal Medicare. It was always his dream that we would bring forward head-to-toe medicine, and that includes dental care and also moving forward with universal pharmacare. This gives us that opportunity, and this is something that some New Democrats have been waiting for a lifetime to accomplish. There are others, of course, who state the view that we don't trust the Liberals. The Liberals are classic at talking about things and then not materializing it. So they're worried that they won't actually act on the agreement. So some people are very concerned and not trusting of the government, and rightfully so, given the pattern that we have seen. There are others who feel that we should, get more. Right, who feel that this is not enough and we want to get more. And I have to tell you, with New Democrats, we always want to fight for Canadians. We always want to fight for the people who need the support. And we see it every day in our community, the great needs. So if we were in government, we would be able to do more. But this is a minority government, and so this is about compromising, getting as much as you can. And that's been the goal of New Democrats right from the beginning in a minority government. Get as much as we can for the people, and that's been the cornerstone. So there's a full range of views, and we all accept it. I agree with all of them. But regardless, with this agreement, we will continue to fight for why we're here and why people sent us here, and that is to get the support and services that Canadians need. We want fairness, we want equity, we want justice for all peoples.
Can you give us an indication indication of how many MPs in the caucus were cautious or opposed to this deal?
Everyone is cautious, you know? Everyone is cautious about the agreement, and we should be. We go into this with our eyes wide open. The document is on the public record for everyone to see what the agreements are, what the terms are, and at any point in time, if we feel that the government is not living up to the agreement, we can always walk. And that is the condition of the agreement that's there for everyone to see.
But you said there were a wide range of views, so I'm asking how many among that wide range of views were opposed to reaching this deal with the Liberals?
Well, we all have a difference of opinion, and we accept all of them. And all of us have some level of reservation about this, myself included. At the same time, I'm super excited about this. I have met seniors who've told me that they are blending up their food to drink because they don't have teeth. There are people in my community who cannot find work, not because they're not skilled, but because they don't have the confidence to seek that work, because their teeth are bad. You know, that is the reality that people are faced with every single day. There are children whose teeth is literally rotting in their mouth, and the family do not have the wherewithal to get their teeth fixed. We need to get these programs in place. This is something that New Democrats truly believe in. So I'm very excited about it. It is about realizing the dream that Tommy Douglas started 60 years ago, and Jagmeet Singh has brought us this negotiation and this agreement. On the flip side of it, do I want to see more? Oh, there's no question I want to see more. I want to see 500,000 units of affordable housing built. I want to end homelessness. This deal doesn't give us that, but it gets us closer to that, and I will take it in the interim to do as much as we can. On Indigenous justice, we're not even close to actually reaching all of the goals that we want to see. On environmental justice, we haven't reached all of those goals either. I can go on with a list of things that we still desire, but it does not mean to say that with this agreement that we will stop. New Democrats will continue to fight each and every day, anywhere and everywhere we can, to get more done. But in the interim, this is what we've been able to accomplish, and I think it is significant. So there's a full range and breadth of opinions, and we all want to push forward. At the end of the day, what is the focus for New Democrats? For New Democrats, it is about serving the people, taking care of the people who need it the most, and bringing balance into our communities. That's why within the agreement, there's provisions to actually bring equity and tax fairness, ensuring that there is some balance within that approach. And with the New Democrats, these are the core values, and that will never change.
Was Caucus caught off guard by this arrangement?
You know, right after the election, in a minority government scenario, we always knew that there may be opportunities that would present itself where we can negotiate with the government to get things done. So we have been preparing for this right from the beginning. As soon as the election was over, Caucus had discussions and we had meetings, we had retreats to talk about what are our priorities, what are the things that we want to get done, that we want to drive forward. So this has been an ongoing discussion, and so for all of us, we want to pursue the goals that people sent us here, and that is to ensure the needs of the communities are met, that we hear them, we see them, and that we're going to reflect their voices in the House of Commons, and then we're going to drive the agenda to get things done for them. Thank you.
You know, when I got up this morning, I went to do a press conference with my leader because I wanted to talk about how we can give Canadians a break on GST at the pumps. Instead, we're talking about how the NDP can give Justin Trudeau a break. So it's disappointing because there's lots of people in our ridings right across this great country that are dealing with 30-year highs in inflation. And what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about Mr. Trudeau inflating his own numbers in the House of Commons. So I'm not very satisfied with that. If I were a Liberal or an NDP member, to suddenly be Monday night, said, come on into caucus, we're going to talk about a deal, and then to have the next day where it's a dueling press conference where you have this thing's locked in without very much discussion or whatnot, I think that's disrespectful of parliamentarians. That would never fly in my party, and I think that the backroom nature of it probably strikes a wrong chord with Canadians.
We're obviously in budget season. We should have one in a couple of weeks. What do you think this does to the bottom line?
Well, sky's the limit. Both the NDP and the Liberals keep talking about new programs. The Parliamentary Budget Office has warned about that. The Bank of Canada seems to, Tiff Macklin came and talked about inflation and how that is a growing concern. And so we have to take a look at it, the whole picture. That's why, again, I'm trying to make my focus in Parliament is how do we make life easier for Canadians rather than how do we make life easier for Justin Trudeau. Great, thanks.
So today we have a Liberal-NDP backroom coalition, which will lead to higher taxes, higher debt, and less accountability. And this is the same Liberals who we know prorogued Parliament in order to avoid accountability and scrutiny. They took the Speaker of the House to court for a decision that they didn't agree with. They called an unnecessary election at a time when we were in a pandemic and wildfires were in British Columbia. Ash was falling from the sky in my community of Kelowna Lake Country. They took 2 months to recall Parliament. And, then now we have this coalition. They've created policies to take away free speech and civil liberties. And for the Prime Minister to make comments about the erosion of democracy is really disingenuous. He only needs to look in the mirror. Thank you very much.
How do you see this affecting the Conservative leadership race? The NDP-Liberal deal, do you think will affect the Conservative race in any way? I'm just asking.
It's just going to add an interesting point to the whole race of why we need good principled leadership in this country, and I think we've got some great candidates who are doing so.
Do you think the race will change with the candidates? Do you think their language will change, how they appeal to your members because of this?
I don't think it will, because we've been calling out the NDP-Liberal coalition since the election, even before the election. So this is nothing new. We've seen this in action for a couple of years already. So it's not really that new. It's just been formalized now is all.
Hello everyone. We're here to talk about the agreement between the Liberals and the NDP today. I will start by acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples and that this country is still currently committing genocide. First of all, we're actually very glad to see the spirit of cooperation. It's something that we've always championed, we're happy to work for, and we're glad to see no matter who's doing it. We're also very happy to see commitments to pharmacare and dental care, especially for children. These were things that were in our platform in 2015, and we're glad to see people finally getting on board, and we're very happy to support it. I'm also very happy to see, and we're also very happy to see mention of a just transition. But more than anything else, I have to say, this has been a profound disappointment of an announcement. The things mostly mentioned in here are familiar, things that have already been promised. There's no exact targets, and everything is small steps. Especially when we look at things like housing, there's so many people left behind. When you're talking mostly about affording housing, it's not just about buying, it's not about small protections for renters, but we need serious change. Et vraiment, c'était une opportunité absolument énorme. Regardez l'exemple en Colombie-Britannique, avec les Verts et les NPD là-bas. Mais aussi, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé avec l'abandonnement quand c'était profitable pour les NPD. Alors, je regarde à l'avenir et je veux voir que ça fonctionne, mais aussi, j'ai peur que les libéraux vont l'abandonner quand c'est profitable pour eux aussi. C'était vraiment l'opportunité de demander des grands changements. Mais dans la place des grands changements, nous avons une liste de petites choses. Importantes choses, oui, mais ça manque tellement et il y a des lacunes. What I was really hoping to see in this was direct implementation of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. True climate action, not the same promise of net zero, but net negative by 2050. Actual targets, keeping to our Paris climate targets of 1.5 degrees, and it's not there. Where in this is the dedication to canceling pipelines and gas and fossil fuel expansion? Sure, we're saying we're moving away from subsidies, but that doesn't do anything for the huge promises we were hoping. And back to, again, yes, small changes to democratic reform that I'm glad to see, but what about the promise of proportional representation? When you have an agreement like this, you have the chance, the opportunity to create a much larger structure of agreement and pushing people from things because you're offering so much in the stability of government for multiple years. Where was proportional representation? Where was a guaranteed livable income? Something we hear bandied about from almost every party at this point. And yet an agreement of this scale, it's nowhere to be found. And I'm happy to see the language around just transition. I'm happy to see we're intending for it. But if we watch carefully and we look at the language that's being used, it says move forward, advance on so many of these key items. I don't want to see them moved forward. We want to see them implemented. We want to see timelines, targets, exact dates, and a promise of legislation passed, not introduced. And also to know that in that language around just transition, what's the actual plan? So what if we're moving forward? Do I have a promise to know that workers that are currently struggling and waiting are going to get something in the next few years as everything changes? I'm not sure. And let's be clear. This comes to us with a world in crisis. Everyone is struggling. We hear that. But I feel, listening to the discussion in the chamber, that it is disconnected from the reality of everyone, of almost every single Canadian. Because we're saying this little thing, this little thing, this little thing will help us. But that's not what we need at this point when everyone is struggling. We're in crisis, and the conversation is disconnected. So these steps laid out in this plan, this agreement, they're nice to see. But society is broken, and that has become clear to all of us. We need transition and transformation, not incrementalism. Any plan, any agreement coming out of the pandemic, I would have thought would be addressing the basics. Where are the actions toward food security, water security, housing security, and mental health? Today is World Water Day. We know going forward that water is going to be key to everyone's survival. We need protection for watersheds, and even across our country, we know that many, many people don't have access to clean water. How is this not the primary thing? How are our basic needs not being met in such an agreement? Also, we know this past year, full of floods, mudslides, fires, the heat dome, people's lives are at risk now. So in all these good things to see, these steps that we're taking, where's the plan for the rest of us? So, in summation, what a missed opportunity. We acknowledge the good steps, very glad to see pharmacare, dental care, the mention of a just transition. But what we see more than anything is that this is a patchwork, and a patchwork means that everyone is still left behind. Thank you.
Merci. Ça, c'est notre chef, Amita Kuttner. Merci mille fois, Amita, parce que je suis d'accord avec tous tes mots. Mais je vais ajouter seulement quelques mots comme militant écolo. Je suis déçue, parce que la seule fois que nous avons gagné les étapes, les promesses, les nouveaux cibles par les libéraux, c'est seulement dans les élections. Maintenant, le gouvernement, le Parti libéral n'a pas la nécessité de faire face à une élection jusqu'à 2025. So, the NDP have given the Liberals the assurance that they won't face the public for an election till 2025. I'm counting not the years, but the months we have left to make sure that we have a livable climate for our children, a livable planet. By giving the Liberals a free pass to 2025 without asking for a single significant step to protect our climate, they're letting them off the hook, and that's 3 years gone that we can't afford to have gone. Again, the only time the Liberals improve their climate policies is when they face an election. They're slow to implement the promises they make in elections. The Just Transition Act was promised in the 2019 election. It's a promise we get now because they're getting into a confidence supply agreement with the NDP, but it was promised long ago. We have to hold to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Liberals promised to that in the negotiations in Paris in 2015, and yet every climate announcement from the Liberal government ignores 1.5 degrees, which will require massive cuts before 2030. And instead, the target they vastly prefer because it's decades away, net zero by 2050. C'est la même chose pour les MPD. Je n'ai jamais pensé que Jagmeet Singh a un seul engagement pour le climat. C'est clair, il y a les élections 2019, 2021, et chaque fois que le parti NPD a le pouvoir d'exiger que les libéraux agissent, il a ignoré le climat. It's been since 2019, Jagmeet Singh has had balance of power and could at any time have said to Justin Trudeau, cancel the TMX pipeline, ban fracking, do not continue subsidizing fossil fuels or you won't have our support and we're into another election. Once again, Jagmeet Singh has demonstrated that climate is not the NDP priority. As a Green Party Member of Parliament, I speak to you mostly as an environmental climate activist and a mother and grandmother, and I don't want to see the Liberals off the hook for a 3-year window where what we have in front of us now is all we get, because it's not enough, and the window on 1.5 degrees Celsius will close before 2025, and we need more. I hope there's people in the NDP caucus with some background and some backbone to tell Jagmeet Singh this isn't good enough. We don't sign away the Liberals, give them a blank check for the next 3 years on the basis of this thin gruel. Thank you.
And I'll just add, as you've heard from Ms. May, it is, we should be mindful whenever there's an opportunity for parliamentarians to come together to try to find common ground and to make progress on those things. That's a good thing. And in fact, just from the last hour of conversation, it can be pretty rare here. And so to see progress on pharmacare, progress on dental care, these are important advancements that will improve the lives of Canadians across the country. And what's also true is that there is a long list, namely with respect to the lack of meaningful advancements on the climate crisis, no mention of proportional representation, no mention of Canadians with disabilities and additional supports for them, no mention of the poisoning crisis that we continue to be in, whether that's with respect to decriminalization or safer supply, that there is so much that is also missing here, while also being mindful that we saw with respect to confidence votes, there's a concern, and I'm certainly concerned, that now with this agreement in place, that on any given vote, that if it's declared a confidence vote by the Liberal government, that we'll then see that Liberal and NDP MPs won't have the ability to vote with their conscience. And that, we saw that with the Emergencies Act a few weeks ago, and certainly that, there's a greater possibility for that continuing to happen now again here. And so, it is important to recognize, where we can make progress, and certainly with respect to dental and pharmacare, this is an opportunity for that. But on the long list of crises that we face, for my part, and certainly for the Green Caucus, we will continue to be pushing for accountability on the climate crisis, on the poisoning crisis, on mental health supports, on the affordability of housing, on that which folks across our community sent us here to speak up for. Thank you. We'll take questions, starting off with Dr. Kuttner.
David Baxter with Global News. Just last time we saw an agreement like this play out in Canada, of course, BC with the BC NDP and the provincial Green Party, and we saw that agreement famously end when Premier Horgan called the snap election. Are you worried we could see something similar here if the Liberals get the sense, hey, maybe we're back in majority territory? How about we ditch this and go back for another election?
Yeah, I think I alluded to that, which is that I carry that warning, actually, that this is an opportunity for a much stronger agreement, because you're actually offering something great for this stability of government, but it's not to be entirely trusted, which is another reason to push for more, I think, because it was absolutely broken in that case, and this is politics, and people will take the opportunity if it serves them.
Just what do you think of the tone in the House today, especially coming from the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois? sitting after during question period, lots of kissy noises and the clinking of glasses, kind of like when at a wedding reception when people want the bride and groom to kiss. It seemed to be kind of the vibe there going forward whenever Mr. Singh was asking Prime Minister Trudeau questions.
Do you want to? I'm happy to. But you were actually in the House. I was watching. It's up to you.
I know Mike wants to speak to this.
Yeah, I would love to. It was particularly disappointing when it just in terms of our democracy, we need to have a respectful conversation. We can, yes, parliamentarians may disagree, but to have that kind of unparliamentary, it's childlike, it's embarrassing, it's not what Canadians, I think, expect of their parliamentarians, and would actually like to see more from the Speaker to ensure that rules are followed. That there's some enforcement to ensure that, yes, there may be a tough question asked, but we should also be able to hear the answer without having to deal with clanking of glasses.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, would you like to?
Just to say, as somebody who is very dedicated to decorum in the House of Commons, I've served nearly 11 years and I've not heckled once. I find it appalling, the level of disrespect, and it actually violates our rules. Interrupting someone when they have the floor violates our standing orders, and members of Parliament should be held to account, and the Speaker should be prepared to name members who are unruly and dismiss them from the House. Merely asking them to behave themselves like small children in a badly run kindergarten isn't good enough.
Yeah, just get one last one on my end and more with an open-ended question. We've heard the Prime Minister saying they're bringing in this deal because of the toxic nature in politics right now, the divisive nature that we're seeing. Meanwhile, we see lots of voices, particularly in Western Canada or more conservative parts of the country, seeing this being a nightmare scenario, having an NDP and Liberal partnership. Do you think this is going to do much to heal some of these political divisions with them? Everything that's been fostered over the past years really bubbling over, and some of the reaction to this partnership that we've been seeing?
I do want to acknowledge, I think, the feelings behind the problems with decorum, as I would describe them, which is this frustration of being kept out from being able to really influence legislation, or I think that's where it's coming from. And hopefully that's not what this will be, and that people can still give feedback and work in opposition to this agreement, and that there is actually pressure that can still be given. But I recognize that, and I worry about the division. And I think that in order to get past division, the first step is always going to be listening. And I've found the words of the Prime Minister, especially in the face of division in the country, to be somewhat hollow. Because when people are dealing with a struggle, everything like this can set us on that track where we feel less and less heard. But the truth is, we need to come together. And it's not always on political lines, but a willingness to try to find solutions that work for everyone. And when I think in this case the fear is, with this coalition, which it isn't, but with this confidence and supply agreement, that people will just be ignored, the fact that people have that fear needs to be addressed, because that should never be what it's about. It should not be one side winning over another, but finding the solutions that actually get to the core of the problems that change things for everyone and serve everyone instead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here to ask questions. Appreciate it.